last but not least, and we are sort of on time, AI. I think we heard about the AI governance framework, but there's also, a few more exciting things going on in AI than just governance, if that makes sense. I hope, many of you are following the fact that effectively open source is eating Gen AI. This is actually a pretty old graph. It's from last year, but it shows the exponential growth of open source models, repos, tooling, infrastructure in GitHub. As you can see, after ChatGPT, we've seen an even further explosion of open source tools that support the current sort of Gen AI wave that we're seeing. And I have to admit that after February, I was actually looking at Patrick. I was in Brussels speaking for a policy conference 3 days later after the sort of DeepSeek moment. In a way, my job as sort of pitching open source to known adepts, known technologists, has become much easier. As Jan LeCun, the chief scientist of Meta, put it, this is not about US versus China. It's about open versus proprietary. DeepSeek at that time sort of provided a way to say, you don't need necessarily massive infrastructure. Certainly helps, or upfront capital to do something, competitive. We can argue and debate how much they actually spent to train those models. But it was certainly something that put open source AI on the radar of, again, economists, government folks, not necessarily, us technologists, which I think we will all agree it's a critical part of this ecosystem. I mean, to the point that even Sam Altman said, that he might be on the wrong side of history there when it comes to open AI. So I didn't have this slide yesterday night, but I do now. The Linux Foundation is running its open source summit in North America today, this week. And yesterday, Google announced the contribution of A2A, the agent-to-agent framework, to the Linux Foundation. I think many of you are familiar with this framework, and it's now moving to a neutral governance. Again, showing how neutral foundations like FINOS, as part of the Linux Foundation, can provide not only that sort of layer of open source, but the trust that open governance provide over these so critical frameworks for the next sort of, hopefully, 5 to 10 years of agentic AI. I'm not going to go through this whole eye chart, but I wanted to give you an idea of everything happening in open source AI in the Linux Foundation. I didn't get a chance to update it with A2A, but you're probably familiar with PyTorch, our sister project in the Linux Foundation. We also have another foundation called the FAI and Data, who has plenty of infrastructure and component, more horizontal, more generic, more foundational. But we, in FINOS, are looking at domain-specific AI, both in terms of data sets. For example, OS Climate has a data commons. And not only governance, but we have benchmarking. We have a benchmark that was built for financial tasks, which is now in our labs repository. We call it the Open Financial Benchmark. There's another area there. We think having your input in terms of what are the use cases that you want to test models against. Again, it's not just about code. It's about what are your requirements. And obviously, we are seeing all these sort of efforts in our community accelerating the existing projects in FINOS. A bit of an eye chart, but you gotta love an architecture diagram. I tried to put together all the different components that we have in FINOS that could constitute an AI ecosystem. Starting from the bottom, we now have standards around compute. HTC Grid was announced last year, contributed by Amazon. You got a booth today, the Open Grid standard, and as you go up, you have data, as climate. You have several tools to standardize data from the CDM, to model and harmonize data like Legend, Rune, Morpher. Again, data is at the core of AI. And increasingly now, we have orchestration frameworks or process automation frameworks like FlowWave. You can start learning more about it today. And open interoperability APIs through FDC3 that you can train your AI on. I remember last year, Microsoft demoed a Copilot trained on FDC3. All of this wrapped in hopefully a very widely used set of governance frameworks like CCC, AI governance framework, and the Calm architecture language that we're going to hear about it quite a bit today. And so, how do you get involved in FINOS AI? I think there are 3 ways that are along the lines of the messages that we shared this morning. The AI Readiness SIG continues to really focus on the governance and readiness side. A new stream is starting around responsible AI. Would be, you can start the repo of AI Readiness SIG. There will be a sub-working group starting there. But we now have evolved what used to be called the LLM exploration. We call him Proto-SIG, I guess, which is an exploration in our labs as to what kind of use cases we can agree upon as pre-competitive and ultimately build in our community. We refer it as the Applied Gen AI group. So we very much welcome you guys. It's open to everyone to join this group and help us really figure out what is pre-competitive. I mean, governance, clearly understood as something that we can work on together. Benchmark, great. What's next? As each of your firms figures out their AI strategy, what is pre-competitive? Like it took us years to figure out what code is pre-competitive, what AI is actually pre-competitive. We'd love to hear from you there. And last but not least, as we, over the last year, had 30 different, between hackathon projects, between labs explorations and experimentations, we need to filter this through the actual folks that own AI at the firms. We are actually creating, Madeleine referred to it, an AI supplemental fund. This is the way we're scaling FINOS in particular areas, which actually means bringing together a governing board for a specific area in FINOS. So we now have 4 firms who are in the formation stage, going to fund this supplemental fund, which will have dedicated funds to accelerate our AI projects. And importantly, these folks are the head of AI at financial institutions. They will be helping us filtering and prioritizing these use cases that we can then invest on and build, again, something that is not only useful, but also with the right time to market in a space that is moving really fast. So if you think, if your company has an open source AI strategy, if your company thinks that you don't need to build everything internally as far as AI goes, we'd love for you to join the AI SDF, the supplemental fund, and join the AI governing board, which is under FINOS. You got your QR code there, going back to fund. Last but not least, I think we are at the end. I want you guys to make the most of today. We have so much programming, 7 different tracks. But I also encourage you not only to visit the sponsors, but to actually go and see the art of the possible at our project expos. We have, I think, 5 project expos. We have 7 project booths. So this is where you get to meet directly the maintainers of these projects, ask questions, provide feedback, learn how to use the project, and learn what the project can do for you. So if you're a business folk, I would direct you to the project expos to see it in action. If you're a tech guy, just go to the project booths, get engaged, help us accelerate those projects. And you got the full schedule up there on the right. I hope you found this morning useful, but this is just the beginning. I hope you have a great day. Make sure you come back for the Community Awards ceremony tonight and the closing keynotes. And obviously, I hope to see all of you tonight for the closing reception. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope you have a great day.